It was so much fun. Look, I tip my cap to the kids over at Ole Miss, and we know what they had to go through with their coach abandoning them and taking the job at LSU, and those guys just banded together, and they had one heck of a run. You know, they beat Georgia. They got to the semifinals. I mean, they have nothing to feel ashamed about. And Trinidad Chambliss, 23 of 37 for 277, a touchdown pass, and that came in the fourth quarter. The kid has got great athleticism, tough. He has that it factor. He's got an electric arm, moves really well. Pretty good processor in the pocket, outside of the pocket, does a really great job, elusive. You know, if he was 2 or 3 inches taller, we'd be talking about him in the same breath as the two quarterbacks that we'll see tonight, Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore. By the way, Trinidad Chambliss was denied his medical waiver for a 6th year of eligibility. Now, he can appeal that decision. Ole Miss can do that. I don't know if that's going to make a difference. But if he gets denied and the appeal is also turned down, he's going to throw his hat into the NFL draft. And even though he's 5'11", 6 foot, he's got a lot of comparisons. I think the Russell Wilson comparison is a really good one for him. I've seen that. I think that's spot on. Now, Russell Wilson was pick number 75, if you remember. He was a third-round pick. Because there aren't enough good quarterbacks in this draft based on what you saw from this kid, can a 6-foot quarterback go in the first round? Now, we got a guy right here in our own backyard, Baker Mayfield, who's 6 foot, maybe 6'1"-ish. He was the number one overall. Listen, all I'm doing is giving you a case history, Bake. You were the number one overall pick. I'm not saying Trinidad Chambliss is going to be number one overall. That's not happening. But I do believe that if he's in this draft, somebody will take him in the first round. I think Carson Beck will probably play himself into the first round. He's got the measurables, the good arm, the athleticism. He's been a winner wherever he's been. Obviously, he's had some good teams around him. Georgia, really good team. Really good talent around him. Really good coach. Miami, really good team. Really good talent around him. Terrific O-line. Mario Cristobal, really good coach. Think about this, too. Miami's in a national championship game, and guess what? That game will take place in their own backyard at Hard Rock Stadium on January the 19th. So Miami will have a huge advantage against whomever they play because it's basically going to be a home game for them. And they will sit back and they will watch this game tonight between Indiana and Oregon, and I can hardly wait. It's a rematch of their regular season meeting where Dante Moore was sacked 6 times. He threw a couple of interceptions. He was picked off in the last playoff game that they played. I think he's going to show up tonight. I do. And if he does show up in a very big way, a lot of NFL draft pundits might put him right there on an even playing field with Fernando Mendoza for maybe being the number one pick. Now, Dante Moore has yet to declare. So keep that in mind. But if he has a big game tonight, why wouldn't you come out? I know there's NIL money. If he goes back to school, he'll make more money. Maybe he doesn't want to play for the Jets. We don't know that yet. Although I wouldn't blame him if he said, listen, I think I'm going to stay in school. The Jets have the second pick. I don't want to go there. I would not blame him if he stayed in school. But you run the risk of going back to school and getting injured. So if you have a big game tonight and you find a way to beat Indiana and Fernando Mendoza on the other side, I think he's going to be motivated. You know Mendoza's going to be motivated to face him again. And, of course, the motivation is you win and you're in the national championship game. I think tonight's game is going to be awesome. I like Indiana slightly, but I think Dante Moore, who's got great athleticism, can really thread the needle, strong arm, only 20 years old, by the way. He's young, dude. He turns 21 in May, so by the time the draft comes around, the draft is in late April in Pittsburgh, he'll be 20. He turns 21 in May. there's a lot of upside, and a lot of scouts believe that he may have a higher ceiling than Mendoza. I don't know if I go that far. I think Mendoza is more of a sure thing, and that's what you're banking on. If you're taking a guy, number 1 overall, you got to ask yourself, is he a sure thing? Or is he a guy who's got some talent, some big-time upside, and he's got to realize that potential if we put the right coaches around him, the players around him? I don't think there's that concern with Mendoza. I think Mendoza's the number 1 pick. I think the Raiders and our friend Tommy Boy out there with John Spytek, they've got the number 1 overall pick. I would not overanalyze it if I'm them. I think it's Mendoza. Now, let's see what happens tonight. Maybe Dante Moore goes out there and throws for 350 and knocks their socks off, which is entirely possible. That Indiana defense, though, is really, really tough. So I'm fascinated by this matchup tonight. Hanging in the balance on the line is a trip to the national championship game where Miami awaits. And for these two quarterbacks, it's, hey, they're going to be motivated by the other guy on the other sideline. So I think it's going to be a great matchup. All right, your thoughts, 888-546-4620. Text at 82945 on the Bartow Ford DAE text platform. We will be carrying this game tonight right here on WDAE. Our coverage beginning at 7 o'clock. Chris Mathis, is that right?
That is correct. Kickoff 7:30.
Great. Yeah. I got to rush out of here. I want to see that game, man. That's going to be fantastic. Raiders are going to be watching that game. I'm sure the Jets are going to be watching. A lot of teams that are needing a quarterback are going to be watching. Again, Dante Moore has not declared yet. However, he has a big game tonight. I mean, honestly, why wouldn't you? You're going to make money whether you go back to school. You're going to make money in the pros. If you have an opportunity to be number 1 or at the very least number 2, he has to seriously consider it. And I think, look, he might have learned a couple of things from that first meeting against Indiana where he turned it over a couple of times. He got sacked 6 times. I think he plays a better game tonight. I'm really looking forward to seeing how he comes out against this Indiana defense. And then you got Mendoza on the other side, Heisman Trophy winner, Kirk Cignetti. How about that 2-year turnaround of Indiana? Maybe the greatest 2-year turnaround we've seen in the history of college football. It's Indiana, for crying out loud. It's a basketball school. Not anymore. Now with the 2-year stretch that they've had. And now all of a sudden, I was reading an article the other day that because of the football program, and look, Indiana basketball, great tradition there. We get that. Football makes a lot of money. And now that Kirk Cignetti has completely turned that program around, a 2-year turnaround, the likes that we've never seen before in college football when you consider where Indiana's been, okay, from a football standpoint. And now they're getting all these big-time donors who are throwing their money into the athletic department. Not the least of which, by the way, is Mark Cuban, the former Mavericks owner and IU alum. He's throwing a ton of money into the Indiana athletic department. Now, a lot of people are also going to be wondering, by the way, I know we got a break. Kirk Cignetti. Watch this guy on the sidelines. He is a freaking lunatic, man. He's intense. He's focused. He has his game face on when he's on the sideline. He's very much into what he does, which makes him great at what he does. And there's a lot of talk out there about maybe some NFL teams looking to make a run at him. Here's what I do know. He just signed an 8-year extension with Indiana worth more than $90 million. So he's going to be like in the $11 to $12 million a year range. I don't think he's going anywhere. And he mentioned earlier this year that he wants to retire a Hoosier. I'm sure there will be some NFL teams that will reach out to him. Maybe they've done so already. We don't know that. Remember the Buccaneers? Yes, that's Jason Lai. Remember the Buccaneers? We speculated the other day that, hey, even though the Bucs already have a coach, they'll peek in on a guy that they might want. And they did. They called John Harbaugh. And that was confirmed by our guy out at KOA in Denver from our iHeart affiliate, NFL insider Benjamin Albright, who was on this hideous program the other day. So I'm sure an NFL owner will try and pry him loose, but it seems like he is very happy at Indiana. And, you know, he may very well end up with a national championship. I know Miami's really good in the trenches. I would still put Indiana as the favorite tonight and potentially next week, but they got to get by Oregon tonight. And look, Dan Lanning's on the other side, tremendous coach too. This is a great matchup tonight. And, of course, you can listen to it right here on WDAE after we're done here at 7 o'clock. All right, your calls and texts coming up. Evan Klosky at 4 o'clock. Ronnie Lady, why does it got to be Black Monday? Ronnie's at 5 o'clock. Mailbag at 5:30.